Trying to decide between the iPhone 17 and 16 is like managing a balancing act between price and features. On the one hand, we have the iPhone 17, which comes with all of the new tech and some key features which are missing on last year's iPhone. But on the other hand, we have a decently priced iPhone 16, which is now available at a much more attractive price point. Hey guys, it's Sagar, and in this video, I am comparing the iPhone 17 with the iPhone 16, and we will try to decide which one should you be spending your hard-earned money on, or rather which one is the right one for you. Now before we begin, let me tell you that this video is for someone who doesn't have either of these phones, and it is not for someone who is trying to decide whether they should upgrade from the iPhone 16 to the 17. Because no matter how good do you think the iPhone 17 is, your iPhone 16 is just as good, and it makes no sense to upgrade your phone every year. Well, unless you just want to throw your money away. With that out of the way, let us begin with the single most important deciding factor, their prices. This year, iPhone 17 saw a small price bump. It now begins at 82,900 rupees, which is 3,000 rupees more than the launch price of the iPhone 16. But it now comes with 256GB of storage for the base variant, which is double than what the iPhone 16 started at. If you wanted a 256GB iPhone 16 at the launch, you would have to pay 89,900 rupees. So even with a slightly higher starting price, iPhone 17 is in a way 7,000 rupees cheaper than what the iPhone 16 was available at a year ago. While 82,900 rupees is the official price, there are some card and discount offers which brings the price down a bit. I got mine at an offline store for 75,000 rupees. As the iPhone 17 was launched, Apple discounted the official price of the iPhone 16 and it now starts at 69,900 rupees for the 128GB storage variant. And unfortunately, this is the only storage variant available. They discontinued the 256 and 512GB ones. So officially, there is a 13,000 rupees difference between the price of both these phones. But just like with the iPhone 17, there are few discount and card offers on the iPhone 16 as well. And right now, you could get one for close to 60 or 62,000 rupees. So the actual price difference is closer to 15 or 16,000 rupees. If price is the most important factor for you and you just can't stretch your budget, then your only option is to go with the iPhone 16. Even if that is the case, don't just stop watching the video here. Keep watching to find out what does the iPhone 17 offer for the extra price. For starters, as I mentioned before, you get twice the amount of storage, 256GB against the 128GB internal storage on the iPhone 16. If you are someone who likes to take a lot of images, likes to store their media like movies, TV shows and your music locally, or if you just have a huge WhatsApp archive, the extra storage on the iPhone 17 is definitely going to come handy for you. Before we move on to the design, let us briefly touch the color options. iPhone 16 comes in these bright saturated colors, whereas the iPhone 17 comes in colors which I feel are the lighter versions of what the iPhone 16 offers. So, the ultramarine on the iPhone 16 becomes mist blue for the 17, pink becomes lavender, white stayed white but got slightly lighter, and black on the 16 also got a bit grayer on the iPhone 17, but they are still calling it black. Teal color of the iPhone 16 became sage on the iPhone 17, and I feel this is by far the best looking color of this year. Honestly, the mist blue, white and black color looks too similar to last year's iPhone 16, so I would be avoiding them if I were you. Alright, so coming to the design, both these phones are like twins. They look exactly similar from a distance, but as you look harder, you will start noticing the subtle differences. Like the iPhone 17 is now a few millimeters taller, thicker and heavier than the iPhone 16. Other than that, both of them look very similar from the outside. Everything from the placement of the volume, power and action buttons, camera control, SIM tray, speakers and microphone grills and the charging port is at the exact same location on both the phones. Even the USB Type-C port at the bottom on the 17 is still USB 2.0 just like the iPhone 16. So if you don't have both these phones next to each other so you can compare their heights, it is really difficult to tell that which is the iPhone 17 and which is the iPhone 16. Both of them also have the exact same build materials, so aluminium for the frame and glass for the front and back, so even when you're holding them in two hands, it is still difficult to tell just by feel which is which. Speaking of the glass at the front, Apple is using Ceramic Shield 2 glass on the iPhone 17 to protect the display, whereas 16 uses a slightly tweaked version of the first generation of the Ceramic Shield glass. According to Apple, this new Ceramic Shield 2 has 3 times better scratch protection. Now, I'm not going to be the one to be testing it, but I have seen a lot of people using their iPhone 17 without a screen protector and it is holding up really well compared to the iPhone 16. Apple has also included anti-reflective coating on the iPhone 17's display, which is always a good thing if you use your phone outdoors a lot. Now, it might not look like it from a distance, but the display on the iPhone 17 saw one of the biggest upgrade over the previous year. First of all, it is now slightly taller at 6.3 inch versus 6.1 inch on the iPhone 16, and the bezel around the display are noticeably thinner on the newer phone. Both the phones get a dynamic island at the top, and iPhone 17 finally gets 120Hz ProMotion support, which also enables always on display. This was one of the most vocally requested feature, not by people who have been using iPhones in the past, but by Android fans because maybe they wanted to switch to an iPhone and they just couldn't because they can't live without that feature. In the past, if they wanted to do that, they had to go with a Pro iPhone, but in the process, they had to shell out a lot of money. This time, since Apple has included this feature on the iPhone 17, a lot of people are going to be very happy. And it is actually showing in the sales. This one is selling like hotcakes and it is sold out almost everywhere, which tells us that Apple is not able to make it fast enough to meet the demand. Going back to the display, it can also get as bright as 3000 nits for outdoor bright lighting conditions. The display on the iPhone 16 doesn't really feel dim when I use it outdoors, but when compared with the iPhone 17, you can see how much better the one on the 17 looks. So in terms of the display, this time there is a lot which separates these two. If you decide to save some money and go for the iPhone 16, you would be missing out on the Ceramic Shield 2 protection, anti-reflective coating, slightly bigger screen, smaller bezels, high refresh rate, always on display and higher peak brightness. The content consumption experience on both these phones is pretty much identical. Both of them also get stereo speakers and the quality of these speakers is amazing on both. However, I found the speakers on the iPhone 16 to be a bit louder at their max volume. At first, I thought I was wrong, but I tested this with different audios and videos on different platforms and the results are same. It is surprising that Apple would let the speakers on their newer phone be slightly worse than last year, but that seems to be the case. Maybe the slightly bigger battery inside is taking a bit more space, or maybe they just thought that no one would notice. But we did. And I think this is really bad move from Apple. Again, this is something which you can test and notice only when you have two phones side by side. Otherwise, I doubt most people would even notice this, and I think that is what Apple was counting on. While we are speaking of the things which are inside the phone, let us take a look at what runs the show on both of them. iPhone 17 packs in the newer, more powerful and efficient A19 chip, whereas the iPhone 16 comes with A18 chip. Both of these are bin-down versions of the chips found on their respective Pro models, and they get 6-core CPU and a 5-core GPU. Both also pack in 8GB of RAM. I think Apple should have gone with a 12GB RAM on this phone as well, like they did with the iPhone 17 Pro and the iPhone Air. But for some reason, they just decided against it for this phone. iPhone 16 initially came with 128, 256 and 512GB of internal storage. But since the launch of the iPhone 17, if you want to go with the iPhone 16, Apple only offers the 128GB storage variant. This is one of the clear ways to push people towards the iPhone 17, as it now starts with 256GB as the base storage option, and you can also get it in 512GB storage. It's a great news that Apple finally doubled the storage on the iPhone 17 to 256GB, but they should have not stopped selling the 256GB iPhone 16 because many people would have still gone for it if it would have been available for a slightly lower price point than before. Overall performance of both the phones seems to be really similar. When you place both of them next to each other and open the same apps, you would barely feel the speed bump on the iPhone 17, unless you're trying to open and play some heavy GPU intensive apps, which definitely run better and faster on the newer phone. Rest assured that the newer processor inside this iPhone 17 is capable of running much harder in the background, and it also runs much cooler for longer. It is also more efficient, so it sips in much less power while doing so. Speaking of sipping power, the battery capacity on the iPhone 17 is 3692 mAh, which is slightly higher than the 3561 mAh battery inside the iPhone 16. Now the iPhone 16 already had an amazing battery life, and for an average person, it definitely lasts through the day with a single charge with a decent amount of battery still remaining at the end of the day. So even if you are a heavy user, iPhone 16's battery will definitely take you through the entire day. iPhone 17 now lasts even longer. With just a 4% increase in the battery capacity, it gives us about 2 extra hours of usage compared to the iPhone 16, all thanks to the more efficient processor and the ProMotion display, which is amazing. I'm not just quoting the numbers which Apple mentioned on their website, because according to them, this iPhone 17 should last for over 8 hours compared to the iPhone 16, which is not what I observed during my usage. Now yes, some people have reported getting lower backup from the battery on the iPhone 17, but their use case scenarios might be different, and the battery backup really depends on how you use your phone. This is how I have my home screen and lock screen set up. As you can see, I have the icons set to their default mode, which doesn't have a clear background. If you have it set to clear like this, then the phone needs to render things which are behind the app icons through the glass interface, which in the end needs more compute power and hence more energy. So if you have your phone set like this, you will observe some more power draw from your battery. I have tried it for 2 days, and this is in fact the case on both these phones. So if you want the battery on your phone to last a bit longer, having your app icons set to default helps a bit. The better battery backup on the iPhone 17 comes in very handy for people who are outdoors most of the time. Even if your phone is on 5G all of the time and the display is on its peak brightness for most of the day, this phone will still comfortably get you home at the end of the day with about 25% of the battery still remaining. While for this kind of situation, the iPhone 16 usually comes down to 12 to 15% by the end of the day. So while both these phones will definitely get you through one full day on a single charge, if you think that you just want the best battery backup out there, you should go with the iPhone 17. It even charges faster. iPhone 17 can go from 0 to 50% in just 20 minutes with a 40 watt or a higher charger. iPhone 16 takes 10 minutes more and charges to 50% in 30 minutes with a 30 watt or a faster charger. The wireless charging speeds are same on both and they can reach 50% in 30 minutes if you pair them with compatible fast MagSafe chargers. Right now, both these phones are running iOS 26.2, which is the latest version. iOS 26 brought a big overhaul to the entire iPhone usage experience. Some people like it and some people don't. I don't know which boat you fall in, but it looks and works pretty much similar on both the phones. There are a few people who say that the newer version of the iOS doesn't run as smoothly on previous phones as Apple specifically built it for the iPhone 17. But honestly, I don't see any difference. At least not between the iPhone 16 and 17. Yes, on the iPhone 17 it does feel a bit smoother, but that is thanks to the newer 120Hz display, and to be honest, I have shown both these phones to many people and almost no one noticed this difference. So for all intents and purposes, the software on both these phones is the exact same. No matter which one you go with, you would not see any difference in their user interface. That being said, I am certain that the iPhone 17 will be holding on to its performance for at least a couple of years extra compared to the iPhone 16, just because it gets new hardware to back it up. So if you're getting a new phone with the idea of, let's say, using it for the next 4 or 5 years, I think going with the iPhone 17 is going to be the wiser choice. Now we come to what we haven't looked until now, and what is probably one of the biggest deciding factor for many people right after the price, and that is the cameras. Again, when you look at both these phones, their cameras might seem identical, but there is a difference. iPhone 16 gets a 48 megapixel main camera followed by a 12 megapixel ultra-wide angle camera which can also take macro shots. iPhone 17 on the other hand gets a new dual 48 megapixel camera setup. So both the main and ultra-wide angle lens now gets a 48 megapixel sensor behind them. And just like on the iPhone 16, 17's ultra-wide camera can also take macro shots. So even if both these phones just have two cameras on their back, with the ability of shooting macro shots, you can consider them to have a triple camera setup. At the front, iPhone 16 gets a 12 megapixel sensor with f1.9 aperture and a 23mm lens in front of it. iPhone 17 on the other hand gets a brand new 18 megapixel square sensor with f1.9 aperture and a much wider 20mm lens. This selfie camera lets you take portrait or landscape images without turning your phone sideways, which is extremely convenient. Here are some of the image samples from both these phones. I am going to make a very detailed camera comparison with over 200 image and video samples from both these phones, and I'll hold on to my thoughts about their cameras for that video. For the most part, I feel like cameras on both these phones are doing an amazing job. You guys check out these images and let me know in the comments if you think that one of them did a better job than the other. Both of these phones get a camera control button, and after having it on my phones for over one full year, I still feel that it is completely useless. Occasionally, I just use it to open the camera app and that's it. I have disabled all of its other functionalities. Until my detailed camera comparison of these phones drop, all you need to know is that both these phones can take amazing images. iPhone 17 is slightly better in lower light and its wide camera is slightly sharper. And if you use the front facing camera a lot, I would ask you to just trust me and go ahead with the iPhone 17. The upgraded selfie camera is much better than any of the previous iPhones, not just the iPhone 16. So to sum it up, here are the major changes which the iPhone 17 brings along over the iPhone 16. Bigger display, smaller bezels, 120Hz refresh rate, 3000 nits of peak brightness, always on display, second generation ceramic shield protection for the display, A19 Pro chip, 256GB of storage for the base variant, slightly bigger battery so better battery backup, faster wired charging, dual 48 megapixel rear cameras, and a much improved center stage selfie camera. I feel like all of these are great improvements on the iPhone 17, but the iPhone 16 by itself is not too far behind. It doesn't get the 120Hz refresh rate screen, second 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera, and still starts with 128GB as the base storage option. But for the discounted price, I personally feel that it's also a very good phone. If you have been following the iPhone 16's price, occasionally it gets a much deeper discount. So if you can get one for 52 to 55,000 rupees, I think I will have to recommend it over the iPhone 17. But if you are looking at this video and trying to decide when the price difference between these phones with all of the offers is close to 12 to 15,000 rupees, then I personally feel that the iPhone 17 is well worth the extra amount. And that is the one I would be going with if I was struggling with this decision. What do you guys think? I think I've tried my best to answer all of the questions that you might have, But if you guys still have any questions about these phones, please let me know in the comments and I will try to answer each and every one of them so you can make a better purchase decision. And as I said before, if you are already an iPhone 16 user and unless you broke or lost your phone, there is just not enough reason for you to upgrade to the iPhone 17. That is it for this video, guys. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for a lot more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.